What does it take to create a legend? A great feat or a lifetime's work? To become an icon is equally as elusive. In the case of James Dean, his fate would help him achieve both. Dying in a tragic car accident, Dean's career would be cut short at the age of 24, where he would leave behind 3 impactful films that would mark him forever as the embodiment of youthful rebellion. James Dean's career was off to a winning start. His raw talent had caught the attention of Hollywood's leading directors of the 50s. He would work with Elia Kazan on East of Eden and with George Stevens in the epic film Giant, and both roles would garner him posthumous Oscar nominations for his captivating performances. Of all of his films, Dean would only live to see East of Eden. He would never live to witness the impact of his career and era-defining role in Nicholas Ray's powerful teen drama, Rebel Without a Cause.
Well, he's real abstract. He's different.
That's right. That's right. I'm cute, too.
Move.
Is that meaning me?
Is that meaning me?
What?
Chicken.
Yes. You shouldn't call me that.
According to the legend, James Dean most famously said, "Live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse," which essentially captures the essence of James Dean. Whether he said it or not, he will forever be associated with that quote. More interestingly, the quote was actually popularized and originates from the film Knock on Any Door from 1949, which stars Humphrey Bogart and John Derek, and the film was directed by none other than Rebel Without a Cause director Nicholas Ray. It seems that fate had a big hand in Dean and Ray's collaboration, or it's just a case of printing the legend.
Live fast, die young, and have a good-looking corpse.
Director Nicholas Ray was a hard-drinking, rebellious character in his own right, and it seems that this would spill over into his work. His affinity for young rebels can be seen in They Live by Night, Knock on Any Door, and would even extend to his portrayal of Jesus as a rebel in his biblical epic, King of Kings. Rebel Without a Cause arose from his interest in telling a story focusing on juvenile delinquency. The resulting film would end up being a thoughtful and sensitive exploration of the complex emotions of adolescents as they make their transition from childhood to adulthood. Rebel Without a Cause is often credited with giving birth to the idea of the modern teenager. Previously, there was no such clear categorization, but following the post-World War II economic boom and the success of compulsory secondary education, which created a separate space for teenagers, resulted in the growing consumer and cultural power of teens, required a label for this demographic of not quite children, and certainly not adults.
Yes, sir, there's something about a high-class ice cream soda that makes a fellow feel as though he's wasting time with meat and vegetables. Ain't it the truth?
Before Rebel, there were childlike depictions of teens, or young characters were not central to the stories. Movies like Blackboard Jungle and The Wild One would focus on teenagers as angry delinquents without much complexity, using external factors of poverty, criminality, and inner-city settings to try to explain away teenage rebellion and the conflicting, difficult emotions. But it wasn't just happening in the inner cities. Rebel Without a Cause would be the first film to explore the complexities of teenagers moving into the suburbs, going deep beneath the picture-perfect surface of 50s America, inventing a genre that has lasted for decades to come, creating perfect time capsules of each era's teenage anguish.
But life is crushing in on me.
Life can be beautiful. I know where it was.
Where what was?
Where I first saw you. Everything going okay now? You live here, don't you?
Who lives?
In Rebel Without a Cause, James Dean plays Jim Stark, the troubled new boy in town, who over the course of one day experiences a series of rites of passage, including violence, love, and death that will change his life forever as he journeys closer to adulthood. Along the way, he meets 2 other troubled souls, Judy, played by Natalie Wood, and Plato, played by Sal Mineo. From the opening scene, which takes place in a police station, the 3 seem fated to meet each other and are united by their inner turmoil, which seems to stem from their dysfunctional family dynamics.
You're tearing me apart!
What?
You say one thing, he says another, and everybody changes back again!
That's a fine way to behave.
Well, you know who he takes after.
Oh!
When we're first introduced to Jim, He's being dragged into a police station for being drunk. He's erratic, unpredictable, and ultimately self-destructive. He's not able to articulate his frustrations. It's only when his parents arrive that we see the cause of his rebellion. There is a generational divide between himself and his parents, who seem stuffy and outdated. Nicholas Ray uses the wide cinemascope frame to visualize the distance between Jim and his parents. More interestingly, however, is that when we are introduced to Judy and Plato, we realize that all of the characters, despite their troubles, are from very privileged backgrounds. It's perhaps one of the early depictions in American cinema of something not quite being right in the American family unit. Behind the lawns, driveways, and white picket fences, something was about to explode. Throughout the film, we see confused teens, but more so, we see bewildered parents. The parents are helpless in understanding or giving guidance to their children. In the case of Jim, his parents seem to move every time he gets into trouble, instead of addressing his issues. With Plato, following his parents' divorce, he's been abandoned by both parents and is being raised by his well-meaning but ill-equipped housekeeper. And finally, with Judy, her burgeoning womanhood and sexuality seems to make her parents, especially her father, very uncomfortable. It appears that her father can accept her as a little girl, but not as a woman.
Stop that! Sit down!
This leaves Judy feeling unloved, confused, and alone, causing her to rebel and fall in with a bad crowd, which has given her the acceptance she craves.
I don't know what to do. All of a sudden, she's a problem.
It's just the age when nothing fits.
However, it's not only Judy's father that seems to be the problem. Father figures in general, or the lack of them, seem to be at the core of Jim and Plato's problems as well.
What can you do when you have to be a man?
Well, now...
No, you give me a direct answer. Are you gonna keep me from going?
Jim, did I ever stop you from anything? Listen, you're at a wonderful age. In 10 years, you look back on this and wish that...
10 years! I want it now. I want an answer now. I need one.
Listen, Jimbo, I'm just trying to show you how foolish you are. When you're older, you'll look back at this and you'll laugh at yourself for thinking that this is so important.
The pressure of what it means to be a man is an important driver for Jim. As he struggles to fit in at his new school, he has to act tough. Acts of rebellion such as knife fights and drag racing are all ways of displaying not only his toughness, but also his manhood in the public sphere.
Why do we do this?
You gotta do something. Now, don't you?
Jim is constantly tormented by what he sees as the weakness of his father. His mother seems to be the dominant force in his family, and it's clear that Jim wants to empower his father by encouraging him to stand up to his mother, as he needs some sort of role model to ultimately show him how to be a man. Unfortunately, dressed in an apron, Jim's father doesn't appear to fit the bill. After Jim's rival Buzz dies in a chicken race, Jim is racked with guilt and is compelled to do the right thing and wants to confess to the police. His mother immediately suggests they move away in order to protect Jim, but he doesn't want to be treated like a child. He wants to take responsibility for his actions, like an adult. Jim turns to his father to back him up, but again, he comes up short, leading to an eruption of rage, which Jim not only takes out on his father by attacking him, but also symbolically on his mother when he kicks a hole in her portrait. In the case of Plato, his desire for a father is very explicit, and he's drawn to Jim's charisma and fantasizes about Jim being his father.
Maybe next summer he's gonna take me hunting with him and fishing. I want him to teach me how, because I know he won't get mad if I goof.
The extent of his obsession with Jim shows how deeply wounded Plato is. He feels so abandoned and alone that he's desperate, not only for friendship, but just like Judy, he wants to belong.
If I had one day when I didn't have to be all confused and I didn't have to feel that I was ashamed of everything, if I felt that I belonged someplace, then...
Belonging and the pressures of fitting in when you're still trying to find yourself is the core existential crisis for most teenagers. The world of the high school can seem so small and limited, and yet the world can feel so large, hostile, and infinite that you can feel so insignificant, lost, and frightened. Following the death of Buzz, Jim, Judy, and Plato get a glimpse into their own mortality, and fate brings them together. They find their place among each other. When Jim goes to the police station to seek help, again, the adult world is disconnected from him. He's not taken seriously, and in another expressively designed shot from Nicholas Ray, Jim is portrayed as small and insignificant to the police officers. After being ignored and rejected by their families and being pursued by Buzz's gang, the trio take refuge in an abandoned mansion in the hills, away from the city. Here they form their own family. Jim and Judy become the parents, and Plato, with his odd socks, is like their child. Judy even sings a lullaby to help Plato sleep. It's here that Jim and Judy fall in love. Jim accepts Judy as the woman she's becoming, which is shown by him handing back her compact, which she would use when she applied makeup, something that her father detested. They appear to have provided to each other what they felt was missing within. For Plato, however, his personal traumas appear to run very deep. While Plato sleeps, Jim and Judy explore the mansion and look for somewhere private where they can be a bit more intimate. When Plato is abruptly woken from his sleep by Buzz's gang, he panics and shoots one of them and seeks refuge in the Griffith Observatory nearby. When Jim and Judy catch up to him, his abandonment issues rise to the surface, making him irrational and resentful towards Jim for abandoning him.
You're not my father!
Jim tries to regain Plato's trust by trying to make him feel loved and accepted in order to get him to safety. But sometimes our emotional damage is too much. Our inner wounds and childhood traumas never quite heal and are carried into adulthood. Plato is ultimately a lost cause, and in a panicked state, he runs out of the observatory, still holding his gun, and is shot dead by police. A death caused yet again due to the miscommunication between the two generations.
Poor baby got nobody. Just nobody.
As the movie draws to a close, it seems that Plato's death was not in vain. It's almost as if Jim's parents, and his father in particular, are changed by Plato's death. Jim's father seems to learn how to be a man from Jim, and we see this through a very small gesture that echoes the opening shot of the film, where we see a drunk Jim covering a toy monkey with a newspaper to keep him warm. The toy is a symbol of childhood, just like Plato, who was essentially still a child, forced to be an adult too soon when his parents left him.
You know what he wanted? What? He tried to make us his family.
As Plato lies dead on the ground, Jim zips up Plato's jacket to keep him warm, and shortly after, Jim's father wraps his jacket around Jim, showing that he has accepted his fatherly duty as a parent and will perhaps start protecting him.
You can depend on me. Trust me. Whatever comes, we'll face it together. I swear it. Now, Jim, stand up. I'll stand up with you. I'll try and be as strong as you want me to be. Come on.
I don't know what to do anymore except maybe die.
What's fascinating about Rebel Without a Cause is the character's obsession with death. They feel so tormented that the end of the world, or death, seems like the only escape. It was JamesDean's death, ironically, that created his lasting legacy. Like Marilyn Monroe, he's suspended in time. We never got to see his looks or career fade or hit rough patches like some of his contemporaries. In many ways, the tragic legacy of Rebel Without a Cause is surrounded by death. Not only did JamesDean die young, but Natalie Wood and Sal Mineo would also die relatively young under tragic circumstances, and therefore the movie reminds us of the power of cinema. The camera captures unique moments in time. Each take, no matter how similar, is never identical. That moment has passed. It ceases to exist in real life, but it lives forever on film. And Sal Mineo, Natalie Wood, and JamesDean remain eternal teenagers, forever young. So that's my take on Rebel Without a Cause. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
You ever been on a chickie run?
Yeah. That's all I ever do.